Welcome back to Fat Logic. This time I'm going to sort it into various kinds of lies that fat activists tell. The first one is creating a cover story. What an airport brings us. I'm struggling. At the beginning of the summer, I tried on every outfit I had and gave a bunch of stuff away. It felt great knowing that everything in my closet fit. Except now that's not true anymore. I heard it said that wanting to change your weight is like wanting to be taller or change your shoe size, and on one level I get that. But is it also true that the way we eat does have a direct effect on our size? It feels true, but is that just diet culture talking? On a more practical note, when will I level out? When will I find my set range? When can I really have just one size of clothes in my clothes closet that I can actually breathe in? This is my first post. Someone replies to the question of, does the way we eat have a direct effect on our size? No, it's not true. Your body size is impacted by so many factors including genetics, hormones, stress, your activity level, medications you're taking, health issues you're experiencing, etc. That's weird, because the way you eat can also affect your hormones, which they admit has a direct effect on your body size. You know, I'm not entirely sure they put a lot of thought into this. Besides which, just because you've found a few things that affect your weight does not mean that other things don't also affect your weight, like the way and amount you eat. And on the question, when will I level out, they write, everyone is different. However, it's important to note that leveling out usually refers to a weight range of around 30 pounds, which may still necessitate having clothes in different sizes. Also, per the previous answer, a lot of stuff impacts body size. But despite proceeding through refeeding and full permission of other steps of IE, your body size will continue to fluctuate throughout your life. 30 pounds? Only very heavy people consider 30-pound fluctuations normal. It's a fallacy of diet culture that we should expect to achieve one size for the rest of our lives. I've seen old people who are still thin. Do those people not exist? The cover story here is that your diet doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is genetics and hormones. They're just trying to create a cover story as to why they're so bad at losing weight. Or maintaining weight even, apparently. Nearby discipline brings us. One of the more upsetting aspects of working in the restaurant industry is hearing all the mothers pass down their eating disorders, fat phobia, to their daughters. If your kid is getting salad, I'm looking at you side-eyed. The cover story here is that any attempt to teach people to eat healthy is fat phobia. Jasasha brings us. If you are in a smaller body, in a fat liberation space, including a small fat body, it's important to be doing your own work about how it would be for you if you became a fatter person in these spaces and in the world. In order to trust you as a small body person, it's important for fat people to know you wouldn't do anything to attempt to avoid becoming a fat person. So the cover story here is that you hate fat people if you don't want to become fat, as if health is of no importance to anyone. Taco Oclaco replies, so, by their own logic, I should treat them with horror and suspicion since I'm thin and they obviously refuse to be or tolerate that. That would help things, right? If we just continually fought each other because we're different weights, that'll solve all the problems. Their superficial, tribalistic attitude is something one should have recognized as BS by middle school. The next kind of lying is diverting. That's where you try to distract people to a different issue which may or may not be important. Claw brings us. This was published in The Economist. While social attitudes around weight may have changed over the past decades, the economic reality has not. Read more. It is economically rational for ambitious women to try to be thin. That is a tragedy. People commented on the article, the amount of people that don't understand that thin is not synonymous with healthy is disappointing but not surprising. I had to do a lot of scrolling just to find this comment. Reminds me of the Biggest Loser coach that had a heart attack. Let me explain why that comment is stupid. It's true, one of the Biggest Loser coaches had a heart attack. I believe it was at the age of 50. What they forget to mention is that being thin doesn't prevent you from getting heart attacks, it just reduces the likelihood of getting a heart attack. So the fact that somebody who is in shape and thin had a heart attack doesn't mean that being thin and in shape is bad for you. You have to look at statistics to understand that kind of thing. And they always show that people who are obese and or out of shape are more likely to get heart attacks than people who are thin and in shape. So this is diverting. Because instead of looking at the real issue that being fat is unhealthy, they're diverting us to one person who had a heart attack and going, oh, look at that. Throwaway scallywag brings us. I find it's very hypocritical in America, where everything is pumped with hormones, to expect people to be thin and lose weight. It's impossible unless you're rich and can afford food from those whole food places. I think this is a good example of diverting, because they're pointing to something that is a problem and pretending that you can't be thin on a standard diet. Cardi replies, my family is middle class and we can't afford to shop at whole food places because feeding teenagers is expensive. We shop primarily at Aldi's and Sam's Club. We don't pay attention to whether or not we're eating food pumped with hormones and don't care if things are organic. We're all at healthy weights because we don't overeat. Shay was here brings us. Just a friendly reminder, the idea that you're fully in control of your size and shape of your body is actually a myth invented by diet culture and fat phobes. They're trying to divert us to one thing, which is to notice that we can't change our height or foot length or arm length or anything like that, so that you ignore the fact that you can change the shape of your body by both exercising and changing your diet. Schmeebly replies, why is it always so black and white for FAs? No, your body size isn't fully in control. You have no control of your height, and you have no control over where you store fat. Yeah, genetics can deal us a poopy hand, no doubt. Recently, I've learned that I have super high cholesterol. This, despite eating well, exercising, and keeping my weight on the low end of normal. My metabolic panel is sublime. My BP is great, and my resting heart rate is 52. I could just say, fudge it, I'm doomed to be on statins for the rest of my life. There's nothing else I can do. Heck no. I'm also going to do things differently. I'm going to read the labels, look at things that will affect my cholesterol. I'm going to change the way I exercise. Nothing sudden, nor drastic, just differently. Genetics loads the dice, but we're the ones who roll them. Halo R brings us. This was published in The Observer. What if we let our kids eat what they want? A radical new take on the weight debate. Modern parenting is preoccupied by the idea of perfection, and that includes weight. Virginia Soul-Smith, author of the brave and radical new book, talks to Rebecca Seal about why our worth shouldn't be measured by size. Classic diverting. They're trying to distract us by a discussion about whether or not our worth should be measured by our size, so that we ignore the fact that we should teach our kids how to eat healthily. Haircut Handhold replies sarcastically, what if I just let my kids decide when to wear a seatbelt or bike helmet or life jacket? What if I just let them decide when to cross the street? Gothic Cheese brings us. This was a video on TikTok. The reality is that all my dreams came true the moment that I stopped trying to manipulate my body and let my body be my body. Everything that I thought I could only have when I was finally skinny, right? Happened the moment that I just let my body be my body, and I need the people that need to hear that to really resonate with it. They're diverting us by talking about just accepting our body for what it is. Well, you should accept things you can't change. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try to change things you can. Squalt replies, trigger warning, booze. I'm happy to announce that as of 2 days ago, I'm done with my alcohol addiction. I'm just saying fudge it. This stuff would be easier if I mentally justified a bottle of wine a night, because it's just me being me. I like being drunk more than I don't like being drunk, so fudge it. Guys, let me tell you, once I stopped caring about my alcohol addiction, it got so much easier because it was no longer a problem. Things are only problematic in theory, and when people say them. So I'm going to say my own truth. I'm a perfectly functional alcoholic. Edit. Also, anyone who replies, please do not use the word alcoholic as it is hateful, unless you're an alcoholic too, but you have to prove it. Thanks. Edit 2. Also, if you're less of an alcoholic than me, you can't say alcoholic either. Thanks. Obviously, all of that was a parody. Nearby discipline brings us. So if a person happens to be able to add muscle to their body easily, genetics, we congratulate them, but if a person happens to be able to add adipose tissue, which white patriarch capitalists call fat, to their body easily, we abuse them and shame them? Horrible. Hashtag fatphobia. Alright, they're trying to distract us by saying, look how we congratulate some people for things that are easy, and say other people are bad for things that are easy. People who add muscle, believe it or not, put a lot of work in to gain muscle, even if it seems like they don't. Even if they do it more easily than other people, they're still putting in the effort. Somebody who has all the genetics in the world is not going to get big muscles if all they do is spend all day sitting on the couch watching What We Do in the Dark. But it's very easy, ridiculously easy, to put on fat and it's not good for you. Nearby discipline brings us, fat kids are not failures. Fat kids are normal. Fat is normal. Protect fat kids. Another great example of diverting. They divert us by talking about bullying and that, being a fat kid does not make you a failure. So that we ignore the issue that fat kids tend to have more health issues, especially in the future once they become adults, than kids who aren't fat. The next category of lying is called denial. That's where you simply just say no to the truth. Like flat earthers who ignore the fact that the sun rises and sets. Nearby discipline brings us, gosh, I wish it was fudging possible to find information about diabetes and prediabetes without the pervasive pseudoscience of fat phobia horning in on it. Classic example of denial. They don't like the information they're getting, so they just deny that it's true. Awkward Kaleidoscope replies, I looked it up yesterday and 80-90% of type 2s are overweight or obese. I couldn't find the reverse though. How many obese overweight have diabetes?
From what I could find, about 5% of healthy weight people had diabetes. Roughly 30% of overweight people have diabetes. I couldn't find an exact percentage for obese people, but everything I found said it was more common among the obese than those who are overweight. This shows that while genes are a factor, they aren't the most important factor.
Rabbit Ruler brings us, if you think the term overweight is acceptable, I want you to know you're fudging wrong. Over what weight? Over normal weight? What is normal weight? What exactly are the parameters here? Oh, there are some, but they were invented by a racist cis white man in the 60s. Maybe we shouldn't learn them. So they're just denying the fact that there are parameters because they don't like them. The weirdest part is what they wrote is pretty racist. So they don't accept what somebody wrote because they're white. That's racist. They don't accept what somebody wrote because they're cis. Well, that's not racism, but it's definitely some kind of bigotry. Mikadraz replies to what they wrote. Wait, were the parameters invented by a racist cis white man in the 60s or a racist mathematician from Europe in the 1800s or something else? It's getting hard to keep the lore straight. Good use of the word lore, since much of what fat activists write is pretend. Cute Army. And just because someone was wrong about one thing doesn't mean they're wrong about everything. Newton was a serious misogynist, but the math checks out with calculus. If you ever want to feel slightly bad, think about the fact that during the Great Plague, Newton discovered differential and integral calculus, formulated a theory of universal gravitation, explored optics, experimented with prisms, and investigated light. I believe he also found a quick and easy formula to find pi to a huge number of digits, whereas before it was done with a really painful technique using polygons. While during COVID, all I did was make some stupid videos. Hodge brings us, just so everyone knows where I stand, calories in, calories out is BS. Anyone who claims losing weight is just as easy as exercising more and eating less is an unserious person. Someone replies, calories in and calories out is 100% weight loss. It's not only basic science, but also basic math on thermodynamics. The first person, okay, babe. Definitely denial going on there. Rare mission. Today I learned that the only thing I need to refute centuries of scientific evidence of thermodynamic systems is the words, okay, babe. What a time to be alive. The next kind of lie is exaggerating. We're probably all guilty of it, but fat activists are perhaps the most well-known for it. VCreate brings us, this is a TikTok. How to look skinny and photogenic in photos. Someone replies, this may seem extreme, but I believe people who say things like this should die. Hashtag the fact that I had to see this stuff in my notifications is rancid. Hashtag let's see how photogenic your body looks when I'm throwing it in a shallow grave. Hashtag fatphobia. Hashtag text post. Hashtag oh this got popular. Hashtag hi every fat person reblogging this. Not only are they not doing the stuff that they're talking about, but they couldn't do the stuff they're talking about to most in-shape people. Besides, what's wrong with wanting to look nice in photos? Kasasha brings us, Hashimoto's girlies eating 1,200 calories a day and gaining weight and doctors saying to just eat less and work out more. Someone replies, more like eating 800 calories a day and they still tell me to eat less. Someone else, I got Hashimoto's and some mental health med. It makes it so hard not to give in to ED thoughts because I only kind of lose with 500 calories. The wayward trout replies, if your Hashimoto's is controlled, you will have no harder a time losing weight than if you didn't have it. So either get your meds checked or admit you're still overeating. But lying to yourself is so fun. Legitimate host also replies, water weight from meds is real. Gaining fat on 800 calories is not. The next section is called Half-Truths. Nearby discipline brings us. Fat is good. It plays important roles in the body, including hormonal regulation and nutrient absorption. This is very true. How much of it you have in your body is largely determined by genetics, not behavior or morality. That's not true. We must end fat phobia in all its forms. You can be fat and fit. A fat person with good cardiovascular endurance has a lower chances of death than a thin person with poor cardiovascular endurance. In studies where they tested this, the cutoff point of fitness was 12 minutes on a treadmill at ever-increasing speeds. Yeah, that's not true. They've shown that people who are in a healthy weight range and don't do any exercise are much less likely to get any cardiovascular diseases than people who are overweight and do a lot of exercise. Make health your goal, not shape. Love your body. It's wonderful, beautiful, and amazing. I know this is challenging since we're drowning in a culture sending terrible messaging, trying to shame us for how we look. Easier said than done, but try not to give in to the shame. Loving your body means choosing joy. It means refusing diets and self-punishment. Dieting harms the body. It puts it into famine mode. Definitely a lie, causing metabolic, hormonal, and neurological damage that's really difficult to repair. That's not true unless you're doing some diet. That is stupid. And that's not even mentioning the psychological effects. Beak replies to an early part. Fat plays important roles in the body, including hormonal regulation. Okay, let's talk about how excess fat affects insulin resistance, causes inflammation, etc. Once again, our fat activist friend is talking about your need for fat as if she's anorexic or something. You do need some fat. The amount of fat these FAs have on them is going to kill them prematurely. Probably. Nearby discipline brings us. Y'all fat phobes need to stop lying about type 2 diabetes. Genetics is the primary cause, not poor diet. Your genetics might make you more prone to type 2 diabetes. But if you follow a good diet, you're much less likely to get diabetes than if you follow a bad one. They continue. Pancreatic function decreasing causes weight gain, not the other way around. It's not abuse to take more insulin for meals that are required. That's just correct self-management. Who's saying not to take more insulin for meals that require it? This feels like an argument against nobody, nowhere, ever. They continue. That's why most diabetics are still extremely ill even after diet and weight loss, because illnesses are complicated. Selling diabetes and other illnesses as a fat disease is one of the most dangerous things ever, but they don't care. There's money to be made, and fat phobia sells. Actually, the companies who make insulin would be more than happy if everyone got overweight and needed more insulin because they make a lot of money off of it. Now my paranoia is wondering if it's in fact insulin companies that are paying off fat activists to be so active on the internet and convince everyone to gain weight. Seeking Jamaharan replies, I'm a graduate in genomics. I think that's genetics, but I'm not sure. Wishing for the day when people understood what genetic risk factor means. Entomology Queen adds, biochemist here, and same. Nearby discipline brings us, trigger warning, fat phobia. Oh boy, medical fat phobia sure is a thing. My neurologist, my brain doctor, put on my issues discussed notes for my appointment. Speech stoppage, disorientation, syncope, the actual issues, and morbid obesity, not the issue. Love stories and songs. Wasn't there a photo of a brain scan going around a few months ago where it clearly showed fat deposits in the brain of a morbidly obese patient? Can't imagine why a neurologist might consider that relevant at all. And it's kind of telling, too, that the patient didn't mention why the doctor talked about morbid obesity. I bet the neurologist explained very clearly the side effects morbid obesity might have on whatever their problem is. Dorkita brings us, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but I consider myself somewhat of an expert on the topic, so I'm a stick beside it. Do they mean stick to it? Body size impacts joints much less than you might think. Unless you gain a large amount of weight in a very short time frame, your bones are well adjusted to your body size and are not being negatively impacted by it. Yeah, that's one true sentence and one false sentence. Just because your bones are adjusted to it doesn't mean your joints are. Are they aware that your joints and your bones are different things? A higher prevalence of joint pain, arthritis, and the need for potential joint surgeries are seen in people who played contact sports in their youth than those living in fat bodies. I don't know whether or not that's true. I know that athletes often do have problems with their knees, but just because athletes see some problem more often than obese people, that does not mean that being obese is somehow healthier. It suggests both contact sports and obesity are bad for your joints. They continue. So if you're in a position to help a person in a larger body experiencing joint pain, please don't be lazy and prescribe them weight loss, because even if that was the answer with a fail rate of 97%, 97%. What a fake statistic. There's not a single study ever that quoted that number. It's not even a plausible intervention. Instead, give them solutions you'd offer a person in a thin body. You'll do a lot more good than you would by telling them to lose weight. Thank you. As has been mentioned many times before, the high failure rate of losing weight is similar to the high failure rate of any addiction. The next kind of lie is minimizing. That's where you try to make some problem seem as small as possible. Much like the way the apples appear in this photo has been minimized so that they're smaller than some of the strawberries. Okay, Ellie brings us. Just want to vent to people who will get it. I'm currently 2.5 weeks into an incredible 3-week Spanish language and cultural immersion program in Ecuador. I've been having an amazing time, but now this particular experience has cast a shadow on my feelings. The program includes a homestay, and for the first 2 weeks, I thought I had the perfect match with another single professional woman in her modern apartment. We got along great. You know, the first time I read this story, I didn't realize the person was an American visiting Ecuador. That makes the whole thing seem so much worse. Anyway, at her kitchen table, she has these chairs. They're typical plastic white chairs. As you can see, they are not the sturdiest of seats. On one of my first days, I noticed a screw on the floor, later a washer. I told her if she knew where they went. She said no and set them aside. Well, at around the 2nd week mark, I went to sit down for dinner and felt the chair buckle under me. The metal frame had begun to collapse. I figured out that's what the screws must have come from, so I started sitting in a different chair. Today I came home while she was still at work, and noticed a repairman in the hall trying to fix the chair. Once she came home, she informed me that the second chair I had started sitting in had the same problem. She seemed visibly annoyed. Then she pointed out that the stacked chairs in the second photo and said, "You can sit in both of them together." It's just a different kind of plastic chair that doesn't have sides so you can sit on two at the same time. Y'all, I just feel super poopy right now. She hasn't said anything directly to me about my size, weight, but it was definitely implied with her direction about the stacked chairs, and my gut says she's upset that this fat gringa ruined her furniture. Why wouldn't she be upset if you've ruined 2 of her chairs? Especially as an American who probably has much more money than somebody who works in Ecuador. We're talking about plastic chairs here, and the person in the story is on an expensive trip. They could afford to buy this person new $20 or $40 chairs. It's only polite. I keep trying to remind myself that it's the chairs, not me. The design materials are not the best, and they seem older, like she had them for a few years now, so they've probably been sat on a lot before I arrived. But I still can't shake the sense of shame because they only broke after I sat there. She also got miffed with me a couple of nights ago when she saw me sitting on the couch with a drink in my hand. She had never told me not to sit there with a drink, so since I was definitely being careful, I thought I would be okay. Apparently not. So now she's definitely acting cooler toward me, and I'm not comfortable here anymore, and I just want to go home. This is not how I wanted to end my time here, but sadly my departure Saturday morning cannot come soon enough. I feel bad for this poor woman living in Ecuador, who lets a visitor come to her house, and they proceeded to ruin her furniture and apparently spill all over the place. Someone replies, "I'm sorry, can you offer to pay for the repair then keep your distance? If you're just venting, then I'm sorry for unwanted advice." The first person, "I thought about offering to pay for the repair or new chairs, but I hesitate to do that because I'm kind of broke. I don't make a ton of money, and this trip was not cheap." So you just spent a lot of money. So you definitely have money. And 2, it feels like I'm admitting that it's my fault when I don't 100% believe that, you know? I feel poopy and guilty, but the chairs are kind of flimsy and old, and so I feel like it's something that I was bound to happen eventually. It just so happened that it was me and not someone else. If you thought the chairs were like that, Why did you sit on them? They continue. She also has a dining table with a number of chairs that are plenty sturdy. I could have easily sat on one of them, but that's not what she offered. And anyway, it's not so much about the solution itself as the implication that I must need 2 chairs because I'm too fat. It might be one thing if I chose that myself. It's another for her to decide that that's what I need. But you demonstrated that that's what you needed by destroying single chairs. She might not have wanted you to sit on the more sturdy chairs because they're more expensive, and replacing them would be very difficult for her, since apparently you're not willing to replace anything that you break while visiting. Of Stories and Songs replies, if one chair breaks when you sit on it, it might be the chair. Like, genuinely, even if you do happen to be a larger person, that's just something that could happen to anyone. But if 2 chairs break directly after you start sitting in them, it's time to consider that it might be you. Desperate Base brings us, stop being fatphobic. There's nothing wrong in being overweight. Diabetes is beautiful. According to health reports, diabetes is not harmful. Stop making people insecure. Body positivity is beautiful. Gyms should not even exist. Why go unnatural? Huckster replies, gyms should not exist. Why go unnatural? This has to be one of the most dumb arguments in a world where just about nothing we do or consume is natural. Yet I see it unironically fairly often. Would it be better to gain muscle from farming or other manual labor? Sure, maybe. Those who did it might not agree, though. But that barely exists in the developed countries, and you still have to use your muscles in natural ways to benefit from the gym. Just because it's in a controlled environment doesn't make it bad. Orphan B-Rat replies to the part about diabetes being beautiful. Yeah, my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 at age 6. She's doing fine now, about to enter her junior year in college, planning on med school, and is currently a counselor at a summer camp for diabetic kids and families. But it is definitely not beautiful, or fun, or healthy. Gatima brings us, I have physical pain brought on by my body size. I have trouble walking because of my extra weight. I have mental blocks around buying and preparing food, and I gravitate toward junk food. When we really started talking about this, my therapist was very excited to tell me all about her upcoming weight loss surgery. She did ask, did you want to hear about it? And I was curious just to find out how it worked, but I have never, nor would I ever, want to get an elective surgery. When the topic came up again later, she asked, oh, so you wouldn't want to get weight loss surgery? And I said no, absolutely not. So the next suggestion was I should talk to my doctor about the weight loss options. What seems apparent is that my therapist isn't at all familiar with the concept of haes, intuitive eating, or anything in that realm. I detest diet culture. I hate the idea of working with my doctor because my health plan is to deal with Weight Watchers, and I've already availed myself of all the various weight loss support groups my plan offers. But there are times when I feel like my foray into haes has actually hurt me, rather than help me. The last diet book I read was The Fudget Diet, which really leaned hard into the eat whatever you want to. And after I read it, I did just that, and quickly ballooned up. Transitioning to permanent work from home didn't help. I'm close to crippled when I try to move around. I'm still on the fence about what approach to take to return myself to a state of being able to walk, more than a couple of blocks without serious back pain and shin splints. The question is my therapist doing more harm than good? I like her a lot. She's very supportive and understanding of trauma and how that informs our coping strategies. But I worry that I should have put more effort into finding someone who understands haes. I'm stuck with choosing providers from a limited list due to the insurance. I cannot afford to see just anyone. Thoughts? Mikha Draws replies, translation, gaining a lot of weight is the sole cause of all of my problems, but I refuse to do what I need to in order to get back to being able to walk more than a couple blocks without serious back pain and shin splints. Maybe a haes doctor will go, the Pokazam, and use their fat magic to make me be able to do the impossible. Stay this fat, but the pain goes away. Olivia Olive brings us, that Ozempic article, and this Ozempic situation is so fudging dark. Years of fat liberation and body positivity is done overnight by the media drooling over a weight loss drug that's just going to have the same health side effects as all the other ones. All the people interviewed just have eating disorders. It's no different than taking laxatives or Adderall to stay skinny. It's very different than those two things. I'm not saying Ozempic is necessarily 100% healthy, but let's try to accurately assess it and not just say random stuff to make it sound scary. The next kind of lie is protesting too much. Rabbit Ruler brings us, alright, I'm going to say it. Purposefully losing weight is fatphobic. You are literally afraid to exist with fat on your body. What else would you call that? Everybody has fat on their body. wanting to be not obese or not overweight is not fatphobic. It's wanting to be healthy. Illustrious brings us. So sad when a fat person gets famous and then they're skinny a year later. What did they do to you? Probably they got somebody to help them with their weight. Machine Leet replies, I don't think it's hard to see that famous people massively change their appearance in any way once they hit stardom is because they're being judged more harshly by beauty standards while having the means to fix their perceived ugliness. But being mad about it because the poor famous fat person had to lose weight is evidently not about that. They just feel bad because someone famous lost weight publicly, which makes it seem like people actually can lose weight. Cosmic Sweets adds, being famous is work. These people have to do a lot of work. It's not just sitting around. If you're a singer, you have to do tours. That costs energy. Weight loss is not done to spite anyone. The next kind of lie is withholding information. Yogi Scientist. I'm in the process of switching primary care physicians. Today I filled out the forms online, so I don't have to do it at the office. One page was about family medical history. The list included typical asthma, heart disease, breast cancer. For each one you check, they ask you which family member had it, including grandparents, aunts, uncles, age when diagnosed, and age they died. Then right between heart attack and osteoporosis is obesity. I've had family members who are or were obese based on the BMI. I didn't click yes. While I most likely inherited my body shape and size from my family, it's not a disease. Also, I don't know when my family members became obese. I don't see them by their size. In fact, I was shocked when I found out my sister was heavy enough to qualify for weight loss surgery some years ago. Have other people found this on the list of family history questionnaires? Badger Sprite replies, obesity is genetic. My size is predetermined by genes. Okay, so we'll treat obesity like it's genetic. Tell us if you have a family history of obesity. No! Oriel brings us. It's some pictures of an ancient statue of a fat person. An 8,000-year-old marble figurine of a voluptuous woman was unearthed in 2016 in the Neolithic urban settlement of Çatalhöyük, I probably mispronounced that, in central Turkey. The figurine is 17 centimeters long, 11 centimeters wide, and weighs 1 kilo. Hashtag it's crazy to me 8,000 years ago people shaped like that must have existed for them to make statues shaped like that. Hashtag like bodies similar to mine have always existed. Hashtag crazy tags. Someone replies, yes, people act like fatness is an invention of the 20th century and our hunter-gatherer ancestors wouldn't have been obese. BS, fat people have always existed, and our ancestors thought they were beautiful. Nah. Clausewitz replies, first of all, the inhabitants of Çatalhöyük weren't hunters-gatherers, they were sedentary. Second of all, there is absolutely no indication that this type of body resembled an actually living person. Another god, Bacchus, was commonly depicted with a giant male body part the size of his torso. We can safely say that this was an exaggeration. I wonder if that led to a lot of women being disappointed on their wedding night. Okay, we're done with the lie section. The next section is just called A Tale of Two Dogs. Eliana Vin brings us. Before, you're a big dog. After, you're a small dog. Just kidding. You would literally never expect a dog to become a different size if it shouldn't be. So we are not all built the same. A kangaroo, just like nobody ever expected to get shorter or change race through diet. And then this one's from last week, but this time it was posted in Facepalm. It's a big dog turning into a small dog. You wouldn't expect this big dog to turn into this small dog by diet and exercise, so why would you expect this, a fat woman, to turn into this, a not fat woman? Triacle Silly. The answer to this question would be quite simple. The former are two individuals, each representing a different breed of dog. The latter is one individual representing two types of eating disorder. And while a Staffordshire can't simply turn into a Chihuahua, obesity can easily turn into anorexia. They need to look at that picture again. The person on the right side shows no signs of being anorexic. They appear to be at a healthy weight. Yiko also adds, the comparison isn't great, but if you understood the message, you wouldn't post it here. If you truly believe the girl on the left can become the girl on the right without any surgery, we can't do anything for you. Yeah, I truly believe people can lose weight and get down to a healthy weight. It happens all the time. The next section is called So Sad. Sleepy Beats brings us a picture from the Philly Fat Con, a Philly's first fat-focused convention. You know, I don't care that they're having a convention or whatever, but every single woman in this poster that they have looks sad. I guess they're trying to look tough, but it just doesn't work. It looks more like they're all suffering from depression, with all of their lips downturned. The next section is called There Are Bad Answers. This thread started originally in No Stupid Questions. Is it wrong to approach a friend of mine about his obesity and terribly unhealthy lifestyle? I'm not going to read the whole thing, but OK Electron replies, unfortunately, once you're overweight, it's almost impossible to lose weight and stay slim, according to a CBC article. Star Tush replies, science has learned a lot about obesity in nearly 10 years since this article was written. Also, its lack of specific studies cited or mentioned of their methods is a sign it's only scratching the surface. This isn't so much a source as it is an op-ed. Studies on weight loss are beleaguered by lots of tricky little variables. Reporting intake. How are people logging food? Are they measuring or ballparking? Are they given pre-measured food for the study? If so, they're likely returning to their old habits after and will naturally gain the weight back. Measuring caloric output. This isn't always necessary in a study since the weight measurements speak for themselves, but it's another possible hang-up. A common reaction to restriction is reduced activity, so any calorie deficit is diminished by the lower TDEE. If a given study is interested in tracking participants' output, they can estimate, use doubly labeled water, or use an extremely expensive observation room that measures CO2 and requires study participants to stay in a little rat cage 24/7 for the study duration. That's the most accurate, but obviously has its own drawbacks. Exercise. Did the study require exercise or grant its participants access to the gym? Do they retain this access after the study concludes? Etc., etc. Then they add, the article you posted doesn't cite its sources well enough, but it uses a few misunderstood stats I recognize. The one about only 5% of people maintaining weight loss is from a 1950s study you can easily find criticisms of by Googling 95% weight loss statistic debunked. Even setting aside the original 1959 study's weakness, the science has progressed in the past 10 years. How much do you think it's changed in the past 60 years? This is all the basic science literacy stuff you have to be versed in, because these cute scientific reporting articles will just jerk you back and forth if you take them at face value. You need to look for timeliness, methods, citations, check who they're quoting, etc. Durkita brings us the narrative of you're just not putting the effort in, and that's why your fat needs to go in the bin. 9 out of 10 people in larger bodies have done nothing but put the effort in to be smaller, and it's got them nowhere. In actual fact, it has got them larger, because that is how bodies work. Well, that was a bad answer. Let's find a good answer. Colorful Snowflake replies, perceived effort is usually greater than actual effort as someone with mental health challenges. The fear of doing a new thing is more difficult to get through than the work itself once I manage to start. I get so anxious that it's hard to focus. I can get so worked up about the easiest thing so I can't even start. For years I fought with depression and fell victim to the scale's whims. I bought new clothes with each season since I hated looking at the clothes I couldn't wear. I would yo-yo as much as 25 pounds a year. I lost the weight and gained it. It seemed beyond my control. I put in a lot of effort. I would exhaust myself by eating too little and working out too much. Then I would crash and do nothing for weeks. It wasn't the lack of knowledge. I was acting out of fear. I'd also like to add that there's a lot of misinformation out there. It's hard to find accurate information about how one should go about a diet. But once you find a good diet, it shouldn't be any real effort at all. You shouldn't be hungry all the time. You should feel satisfied most of the time. You should not feel like you're suffering. And if you're trying to lose weight, you should be slowly losing weight with very little effort. The next section is called Bad Ads. Kotaru brings us, it's 2 ads right next to each other. The top one says, childhood obesity, don't take it lightly. And the bottom one says, McDonald's, my kind of shopping spree. They've managed to combine the cause of and the solution to obesity here. And the last section, science. Sugary drinks tax could prevent decay and increase health equity. Study. A national Australian tax on sugary drinks could prevent more than 500,000 dental cavities and increase health equity over 10 years. A Monash University-led study has found. I mean, that's good, but Planeswalker John Pork suggests a better idea. Why don't they regulate the amount of sugar that goes into a product rather than just increasing prices? I thought this was interesting. Once daily feeding is associated with better health in companion dogs, results from the Dog Aging Project. So it's better to feed your dog once a day, okay. IB Turpin replies, dogs who eat only once a day will tell you they are being tortured. So will dogs who eat only twice a day, and 3 times a day. And so we come to the end of another video. If you liked the video, please consider clicking like and subscribing. If you really liked it, consider becoming a member. Members get early access to videos. Members at the 2 higher levels get their names right at the end of each video. Members at the very highest level get 1 free short video every couple weeks. Special thanks go out to Emmett McNally, Cupcaker Death, MMC, Just a Girl, Gato, That One Guy, Wolf Child Rusk, Average Loser, Maria P, Syringa H, and Grey Warden Invasion. Thank you to everybody who subscribes and helps me to make these videos.